infections and loss of life associated with COVID-19 has caused immense trauma to our society. Vaccinating most adults is a crucial component to the success of our economic recovery. And the ANC government and various other sections of society are intensifying the campaign to urge more and every eligible South African to be vaccinated. We must be more proactive, and we agreed that we must be more proactive and mobilize a wide range of stakeholders. Let me say that includes the media, towards this end of encouraging people to be vaccinated. It is a truth and a reality that the more people that are vaccinated, the less mutations we will encounter with the virus, and the less illness there will be. It doesn't mean the virus is going to go away, but it does mean we will begin to create some measure of immunity amongst the population. So we also recognize that developing countries have continued to pursue various strategies to acquire the means to produce the COVID-19 vaccines, including the waiver of aspects of the agreement on trade-related and intellectual property rights. This is going to allow South Africa and countries to the south to build capacity to produce medication and consumables, as well as develop domestic manufacturing and job creation capacity. Aspen has already begun production, and I think they've produced over 25 million doses. Some of it has been put out in the market, some of it will be kept back for our own consumption in South Africa. Now, in order to fight poverty, the pandemic has had an impact, and it has actually exposed the levels of our poverty much more stark than before. Although grants have reduced hunger, you know, the granting of giving of a grant has reduced daily hunger. It has not eradicated poverty, and there is no reality such as that. The grants are there to try to bring down hunger, to try to assist the most poor and vulnerable in our society. But what will reduce poverty is concrete job creation, giving people a dignified way in which to make a living. That's what will reduce poverty ultimately. So the ANC has put down a determination to accelerate the implementation of the economic recovery and reconstruction plan, and to continue to promote structural reforms and to promote local productive activity to grow our economy. It's been a lot of discussion and talk about local production, but local government is the engine room for the stimulation of local productive economies. And that's why we've been obsessed a little bit with finding the right people to go into local government. We'll talk about that as well with you today, making sure that we have proper capacity in the local government sphere, that we're not seeing people employed because they're the friends of somebody else, or you have somebody employed as in the wrong position. They might be well qualified, but they may not be qualified for that particular job. Of course, our country has a dearth of engineers, and as we know, all the engineers are now located in the Western Cape, which is unfair, but it's also a reality of our demography, that over the apartheid years, black South Africans were not allowed to train as engineers. And we've only begun to properly train engineers in the last 15 years. And a good engineer with experience, to run properly takes quite a bit of time to develop. So the older engineers have all gone to the Western Cape, and that's where they've located themselves. It's a sad reality, and it's one that we must all try to undermine and find a way forward. Then access to digital platforms and broadband, we also discussed that. The increased role of digital platforms in our economic lives is expected to persist even beyond the pandemic, as more and more social, economic governance and supply chain interaction move to the digital sphere. I think we all have become very used to Zoom, and all these other platforms that we talk through, it is a limitation, but it is a reality. We have to enable universal access to broadband and begin to the release of spectrum in this country. Too many suppliers of spectrum. Currently, spectrum is held by the big 5 operators in the country, and that doesn't augur well for spreading it out. So there is a need to move way beyond the narrowness and to look at a digital economy which is inclusive and sustainable. And we have now said to the government that they must fast-track the South African Connect project in a cost-effective manner. It's really up to the government to push this, and we're going to have to push them to push it as the ANC. On the manufacturing of vaccines, just a little bit of information that we got. We have built on the 20,000 ventilators already produced in South Africa. We've produced vaccines now. About 25 million doses of the J&J vaccine was completed at Aspen plant in the Eastern Cape, and more than half of those were released into the market, as I've said. Production is now mainly for use in South Africa and the rest of Africa. BioVac received a commitment from Pfizer to produce their vaccine in South Africa, so we will be producing the BioVac as well, scaling up over a period to 100 million doses, and the South African firm is now getting ready to retool for this opportunity. The reason for this, and we're quite happy to be the manufacturing base for our continent, it was a discussion and agreement at the AU that we would play that role, and we're very happy to do so. The country's localization campaign is showing results beyond the COVID industrial products too. These range from production of pots, pans on the one hand to cars, bakkies and fuel cells on the other, and efforts have been made to enable SMMEs and black industrialists to enter more industrial sectors of the economy, and the master plan rollout is gathering pace. The efforts have been benefited from close collaboration with companies, businesses, associations, and with the trade unions. And as you all know, these matters have all been discussed quite significantly in NADLEC as well. Now, we discussed the notion of special economic zones. Construction has started on a special economic zone to manufacture components for the auto industry in Tshwane, and the first 4 black-owned firms have been supported with money from the Auto Industry Transformation Fund. So that's a good thing. The new Mercedes-Benz model made in Buffalo City, East London, was launched in June of 2021. So the automotive industry creates a lot of jobs, as we know that, and downstream, upstream and downstream jobs. So it's a very good industry for us to continue to support and build on. Toyota announced the production of the first green hybrid vehicle and retooling of the factory for the first Corolla hybrid vehicle with a combination petrol and electric motor engine, and production is expected to commence this November. So that is what we heard from the trade and industry component in the discussion. Then on social security, there continues to be a very significant demand for government to continue with and expand income support measures for those living in poverty. Further work needs to be done towards the achievement of a comprehensive social security mechanism to ensure that all South Africans can live comfortably and with dignity. This requires better alignment and linkages between social security policies and the labor market policies, so that beneficiaries of social support can move more readily into employment. One of the things that we have heard the criticism about is that the grants disable people from looking for jobs. But at the same time, there's quite a lot of fact to the idea that people are using their grants collectively to start local economies, small little local economic production units, which is a good thing. But primarily the grants are intended to put food on the table. And the biggest recipients of grants right now is single mothers with children, and of course old age pensioners, who in our society take care of children in any event, as we know, as their children leave home. We are looking to extending further support to the unemployed and those who are structurally marginalized, possibly in the extension of the COVID-19 grant, targeted food poverty line support, or a basic income grant. The majority of us in the ANC support a basic income grant. And in the Legkotla, that was the biggest perspective that was driven. What is needed is to look at how we can combine all of the grants that we currently have into a comprehensive system that would work well together with also training people for readiness for jobs in the market. What I think we should say to you is that young graduates who have a degree are going to be able to move into the market very rapidly. But the largest proportion of the people who are unemployed in our country and remain terminally unemployed are people who do not have a university degree or who have not completed high school. And Stats SA gave us those statistics, and that is quite problematic in that over 27 years people have been dropping out of school, and they're not old people, they are people at the ages of 40 and upwards who have dropped out at a point in their lives. That would have been pre-1990, and did not receive any further training to enable them to have a skill. And that's the stubborn unemployment factor that we have to deal with. We also spoke at length about climate change and a just transition. And this, we all agree that it presents a range of geopolitical, security, economic and social risks and opportunities for our country and the world. So they're both risks and opportunities in how we go forward. We must be resolute in ensuring that we engage with these risks and opportunities in a manner that advances South Africa's national and developmental interests in all aspects. As you know, 70% of our energy base is still based on coal. And it's been a battle with the mining industry and other industries. We have simply got to move towards other forms of energy in our country, and we can't wait forever. It must move on. Transition to a low-carbon, ecologically friendly and socially sustainable economy presents opportunities to create jobs, inclusion and growth in the following sectors: renewable energy grid construction, manufacturing of renewable components, battery storage, green vehicles and green hydrogen, while assisting us to further our environmental protection objectives. One thing that is beginning to happen globally is the market out there where you send your goods that you've produced asks questions like, what is the carbon footprint of this garment that you're selling to us? You know, and so it will become much more difficult in future if we are not able to say that we are using renewable energy as a base for our industrial development. And especially if we're looking towards creating external markets for goods produced in South Africa. And that's what we need to accept and understand, that there's no country that's an island. You have to trade with the rest of the world if you are to develop and to grow. We welcome the detailed planning Eskom has done for a just energy transitions to one power station, ensuring that workers and community well-being is assured and advanced in this process. The just transition also offers potential for our mining sector, where we have advantages in the platinum, lithium and other sectors. We will intensify work on the hydrogen economy, which includes hydrogen-powered fuel cell electric vehicles, where South Africa has a comparative advantage. Maybe in a year's time when you come here, you'll plug your cars outside while you wait for us to talk to you. Infrastructure development is the backbone of economic process. We must therefore aggressively expand social and economic infrastructure to meet the needs of the economy and South African people at large. This includes new investments in renewable energy, mining, water and sanitation, roads, bridges, human settlements, health and education. We were very happy to receive from Dr. Ramaggopa, who works in the President's office, what is actually already being done. It's on the go. And where they're still waiting to publish the specifications and invite for tenders. A great number of work has already progressed with road building, bridge building, infrastructure upgrading, in particularly waterworks and sewage works in some of the local areas. So there's been quiet work and it's been good work. Hopefully the water woes we have, especially along the Vaal concourse, will soon be something of the past. We all pray. But one of the things the President emphasized was that the South African economy has to be supported by a bold and very, very courageous government at the moment. And therefore the public sector has to take a leading role. And made the analogy with what is happening in other countries, and I'm not very good at isms, but you know, the whole neoliberal conscript of the Bretton Woods institutions was a rampant market economy would stimulate jobs, and we've seen globally that that's not the truth. So what the President was talking about was this notion of using infrastructure as the building blocks to creating development and local economies, as well as stimulating economic growth and ensuring that there is job creation. And I think that's quite remarkable. It's something that has been spoken to over the last 30 years. And the sense I got as a participant was that there was real commitment there. And as people were making their presentations, we could see in the presentations that indeed it wasn't just words. And you know, some of us, and myself in particular, I'm quite hawkish about that. I want to see that somebody's telling me what is being implemented, not giving me more plans and more plans. And this time around, we saw a great deal of implementation programs that are coming. Then the building a capable, ethical and developmental state, and the reconstruction, growth and transformation of our economy depends on the efficient state that is developmental in orientation and capable in operation. Agile, a state that can move fast. A state that can move fast with people that are able to do the job and do it properly, but do it effectively, efficiently, and in record time, not slow, progressively slow and lethargic, but fast and efficient and good. In local government, we have to say that you can put a lot of resources into local government, but if you do not have the qualified people to manage local government at a professional level, it will not work properly. Secondly, councillors and politicians at national, provincial and regional level have a duty to make sure that the manifesto that we as the ANC are elected on is implemented. But what they cannot and should never do is to interfere with the implementation of the work that must be done by professionals and people that are employed by municipalities to do the job. We also talked about the fact that outsourcing has become an epidemic in local government. So you outsource everything. Whereas local government has people that they already employ and pay, why would you need to outsource for grass cutting, for instance, to someone else when you already have workers in the local authority who should be able to do that job. And herein is the nub of the problem, and that is about people misunderstanding this notion of 30% local content. We know that there are people who go around and demand cash from companies, and they claim it to be a policy. There's no such policy. The policy is that whatever you do, there must be a 30% local content in its application. And that means that if you're going to procure goods and services into any of the state authority, it cannot be less than 30% of the components that the state requires, all imported or coming from somewhere else. There must be local content. And unfortunately, the misunderstanding, and I'm sure you'll ask me this question, I think there's something called Madela Kufa in KZN, in the Northwest. It's quite serious, and it is something that we are determined to really work hard on eradicating, is this notion that gangs of people can go to a construction company and demand 30% of the cash that they make for themselves. It's not that there's no ANC-driven policy of that nature. We also have agreed that we want to see finalization of the work to put in place a single framework for the whole public service administration. We agreed long ago that we want a single public service, one, that would work from top to bottom, is interchangeable. You would be able to move people around from one level of the government to another if they qualified. You do not need to consistently have work in the silos that you work. You would have a minimum standards of employment for everybody from top to bottom, and that's what we've agreed on. I can see you looking at your watch, so I'm going to go faster. As you know, the district development model is the model on which we are premising our output. And the districts have already been set up. There are 54 districts now and 14 local municipalities. The district development model in plain English is a model that integrates government at all levels towards a single purpose. So if you're going to build roads, you're going to build roads based on what the National Roads Authority has to put into it, provincial and local, so that it's one plan and not 3 plans per example, and it would actually cost less and be much more effective and efficient. Of course, fighting crime and corruption we have to do as a matter of urgency. It's more than just corruption that we need to tackle. It is also just criminality, plain, simple criminality, gender-based violence, as well as housebreaking, thievery, hijackings, and so on. There was a great deal of discussion about how we go forward, but there needs to be some commitment towards improving the numbers of the South African police services. And then on the international front, we are part of an increasingly complicated and interconnected world, which is afflicted by many emergencies ranging from armed conflicts to epidemics, global warming, cybercrime to the displacement of people. And we are discussing our readiness to improve meaningfully a manner in which we can contribute to the process of enhancing regional and global common security. In our own neighborhood, we have a problem in Mozambique, but we're already involved there as a country. But it needs to go a little bit beyond boots on the ground. It is also the notion of what is the cause of that particular problem up there. I don't need to talk about local government elections. Enough was said over the weekend, except to say that we have 55 days left today. We're already working towards realizing a successful local government election for the ANC. As usual, we don't anticipate that we will not be given, that it's an easy ride. There's never been an easy ride election for us. We will work hard. Our ambition is to win all the metros, including the Cape Town Metro. We said nothing. We made no comments about what should happen with the IEC. We only hoped that the IEC would take the legal and democratic decision that they did do. We want to say that we reject the accusation being made that the ANC tried to influence the IEC or the Constitutional Court in any way whatsoever. We did not, and we cannot. We met yesterday with all other political parties in the Party Liaison Committee for the first time with the IEC, and that's enough for us. We understood and accepted the position that they emerged with, that you cannot reopen voter registration without the concomitant reopening of and enabling people to run as candidates, because any person who registers as a voter is eligible to run as a candidate. And particularly since already in local government you have the prospects of independents who are eligible to run as. Also, I would like to say that it's been a bit sad for us to note how the media has distorted the facts. We put out that in a spread across 35 municipalities, there was a missing number of wards that did not have candidates, and that it would impact on our capacity to make sure that the people who want to vote for the ANC have the right to do so. SABC started the war by saying that 250 wards, 250 municipalities are affected. There are only 256 municipalities in the country. Then they changed it and said 90. We tried to correct that. We sent out a fact sheet. And even after the fact sheet was sent out, it didn't make a difference. The determination to try to suggest that some dark, deep, dirty thing had happened. What really happened was the following. In about 300 wards, people had been put on the list and there were digits missing on their ID numbers. Okay, so get the ID number, there's some digits missing. The IEC did not open for corrections immediately. When they started opening for corrections, that number reduced because we could correct it. Then there are about, and I won't go province by province, but I would say this, in about 35 odd municipalities where people's registration was not accepted. It was in the system, but the system closed at 9:30 that day. One lot of papers came in at 9:38. We have to tell you the truth. And that lot was the one that was not accepted by the IEC. Another lot came in at about 8:59. So what happened was, when the system initially shut down, that lot was not accepted. But it was in our, what we call our preliminary data. So it was there, but on their side, it didn't. It's not the IEC's fault, and there's no use you looking for blame, because that's what you do. Who's to blame? Whose head must roll? It was a difficult one, because in two areas, the provincial list committee and the PEC kept changing names. And when you change a name, one name, Firstly, the system takes off everything else, and then it allows you to reboot and put in the new list, a new sort of list with the new changed name. That's exactly what happened to us. So I just I wanted to dispel that, please. I know we're over that now, and we didn't want to go into a fight with you guys over this thing. And you know, I kept saying to the DIP, leave it. You know, things will come out of a washing machine, and it will wash itself out. What was a bit sad was even the fact sheet we sent out eventually. You didn't really take it very seriously. Let me also say that we noted the decision of the Department of Correctional Services to release former President Jacob Zuma on medical parole. And we understand that he's not well, and our thoughts and prayers are with him. We're quite happy that he's back with his family. So let me end there and take your... Now, I'm on my own here because, as you know, I'll just take your... What I'm going to do is, if maybe we can just put the lights, well, I'll try. I can see. My glasses are on and they are clean. I can see you. I'll take hands. If I don't know your name, I apologize. Tsiri?
Okay, I'll start.
You can start.
All right. Yeah,
I'll take three hands at a time.
Okay.
Tsiri, and then behind Tsiri? Pule. Okay, I'll just... Do you mind if I use first name?
Yes. Not mine.
Oh. Okay. Second name, please. Mbali. Okay, those three first. Tsiri, Pule, and Mbali.
Okay, yeah, I've got a lot of questions, Jessie.
We'll take them slow.
I'm going to try. Let's start with the issue on the local government elections. You keep talking about the system errors, the glitches. The papers that you filed and subsequently you spoke about the glitches as well. On the other side, the IEC says we monitor. We have a system that monitors at all times, minute by minute, it gives reports on what's happening.
Sure.
And that would suggest that if there were glitches, the IEC would have picked up on it. Did the ANC lie about the glitches? Swamp on that. In hindsight, was the decision to centralize this process an error on the ANC's part? I'm going to try and leave it at 3 for now, but I definitely will come back. The opposition parties, I mean, you kind of addressed it about them saying it's special treatment, they're trying to get the ANC through the back door. They also are threatening legal action. Is the ANC going to oppose legal action? Just a quick one as well. You said you're preparing for local government elections. I have to ask, I haven't seen any posters. We understand the ANC to be broke. Staffers are upset that they don't have their salaries. So that speaks to a lack of capacity. How is the ANC going to prepare to campaign for these elections 55 days away? No staffers, no money, no posters on the streets. Thank you.
Right, maybe just two questions. Just I'm just, you speak about the systems that are glitched as well. I just want to know, do we have a correct number of how many candidates were accepted by the system and those were blocked? Because you say that you sent the candidates on time. And maybe just on the matter of the staff as well, we understand that the top 6 will be meeting with the staff representative committee today. And the DA is also threatening to take legal action, saying you haven't paid out the UIF for the staffers. Is this something you're looking at as well? Will you also be opposing that application? Because in your briefing, you spoke about how there's been a lot of pressure from opposition parties as well. Thanks.
My colleagues have covered most of my questions, but DSG, I know that there were issues with your list that were taken to the IEC. We saw a number of protests outside the Jubilee House, different regions protesting, saying that lists have been altered. Is this something now that you will be looking into, trying to address that? I know there were some people that I've spoken to saying that the incorrect names were put on there. How long is this process going to take to assure your members that it is indeed the right names that will be on those lists? And when it comes to your campaigning for the elections, we know the ANC has said that it has no money. How do you plan to conduct your elections if you continue to say that you have no money?
The will of the people is quite an important will. First of all, no, we didn't lie. the truth of the matter is 357 people were not allowed, were not registered. Let me put it that way. So if you have 357 people, some of them were candidates or award candidates, the others were PR candidates. I think of that, the PR candidate list of the Western Cape, which was presented the night before, so there was no timeline problem, did not register. Just as an example of Cape Town City, did not register. So it's not a lie. Well, all we're saying is that you can't apportion a blame factor and say there's this and there's that. And the reason we withdrew our legal case was exactly because we sat down and we went through minutely, one at a time. What happened here, what happened there, what happened there. So it was the only way we could in fact say, look, whatever happens, we cannot blame the IEC system because we may have made a mistake in the input. We do know in 2 instances we were late. The one instance, we were definitely late. There's no doubt about that. On the other one, we were not late, but there's no system that has a perfection. So the system shut down at 9 o'clock the first time. That group of names went in at about 8:50 something, just before 9 o'clock. And at that point in time, many people do their inputs. That we know from past experience. That we must say is perhaps it's not a glitch, but a system. It would have slowed down at some point.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that to you. So when we looked at that, we decided of those 359 names in total, we live with whatever comes out. We will try and see what to do, and we withdrew the court case. Now we withdrew the court case before the Court had made a decision, and I think that must show that we had decided. Look, yeah, it's a bit. Let's leave this thing. 359. It would have impacted on us over, not have taken away our ability to govern, but over 35 municipalities in the Northwest, in Limpopo, a few, very few, very, very few in Gauteng, no more than 18, I think. No, I'm speaking from memory now. So I just want to say to you, lie is a very strong word to use, and I think that comes straight out of the mouth of one of the opposition parties, which is unfortunate because people who lie by definition are very quick to call other people liars. That's my attitude in life. So we didn't lie. We analyzed and we decided to withdraw our... The system was centralized for 2019. There was no problem. We don't think the problem is the centralization of the system, although I must say it is much more effective for somebody to get into the IEC office at 5 to 9 and sit there in a local area. Yeah, you go there with the list, it's physical, you wait until, and if you're waiting in the queue now, the IEC then does the uploading. We are discussing that, and a lot of our provinces have raised that as a problem. They have said, in their view, the centralization has created difficulties. Myself, I don't think so. I think what is the problem is that people procrastinated too late and too long. And when they knew that they were given 4 more hours, they should have jumped faster and not hoped and prayed and again waited for the last minute. We have another window now. And we're praying that no one will come with any excuse. And I have said this. I've said, look, there's no forgiveness. If anybody doesn't come with a full, complete, and a list with all the ID numbers in place. Can I also say that what had happened in some instances was people were elected as councillors, but they were not registered in the municipality where they were being elected as a councillor. So little detail like that was amongst that 359. So this takes, dealing with an election is actually an exact science. You cannot be lackadaisical and you cannot be inefficient. You've got to be very precise and very clear in your mind. Who you're putting onto that list, why they're there. They must be a registered voter on the voters' roll, number one. Number two, they must be a registered voter in the municipality, not necessarily the ward, but the municipality where they are being put up as a candidate. Those are three fundamentals that you cannot change because that is the law. So then, did we get special treatment? You could have called it special treatment if we went out on a megaphone and lobbied for the outcome of what the IEC eventually did do. We didn't lobby at all. Our attitude was, we'll go to the PLC and we'll put our argument there, which we did. We did not put our argument in the media. Formally, maybe one or two individuals might have done so. I can't take responsibility for that. But we took our argument where it mattered. And that was in the PLC. And there were 6 other political parties who had a similar view to us. So I'm not sure if all 7 parties lobbied or if it's just the ANC that is capable of lobbying in this negative manner. We did not lobby. And I want to insist on that. I really don't care. To be frank with you, at this point, we've got to recognize that some in the opposition are fighting for their political lives right now. The scope of the terrain is broadening. People have more choices, and people will exercise those choices. All of us who are contesting this election have to understand that it is really the voters that matter, not our own personal perspectives about each other that matter, even though that's what we do in elections, isn't it? We go negative. I can assure you that the ANC will not conduct a negative campaign. We never do, and we never will. It's not who we are. We don't conduct witch hunts against the leadership of other parties. It's a waste of time. We only have 50 odd days left. We don't have time to waste.
Right, Jessie Duarte briefing the media there on local government elections and a range of issues. We'll have a summary for you on that a little bit later on.
With all the ANC volunteers on the ground, we're already starting to work. People have gone out already. Our candidates will lead the election in the ward where they are a candidate. They will work with volunteers. We're still going to go door to door. That is the style of campaigning that we do. Of course, we're not going to be able to have rallies because of COVID-19 regulations, but we are going to go door to door. And that will be the style of our campaign throughout the country. We will be going to 4,861 wards, even wards that are strongholds of other political parties. We're not going to be afraid to put our foot into every space where it is possible. The National Executive Committee has met. We will be having our strategy workshop on Sunday and Monday, finalizing our core message. We'll put it out. We've also learned the value of this little machine. Very valuable. And a lot of our voters and a lot of the electorate now have this machine. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Don't write us off just because we don't have money. We'll see you in Hastings, as they say. Whatever legal action is taken that is unproductive and negative for the country and the democracy of our country, we will oppose. Going to put it that way. Our relationship with our staff is an internal matter between us and our staff. Anyone who wants to take issue with that would also have to make sure that they have the mandate of our staff to talk on their behalf. We have a staff liaison committee, we're meeting with them. It isn't very profitable and productive to discuss with you what we discuss in a staff liaison committee. I think the staff have rights to confidentiality, and I think as an employer, so do we in this regard. So we are meeting, we have regular meetings, we're moving towards hopefully a solution. It is difficult, but we are never going to tell the staff not to go on strike. It's their right to do so. They have that right. You know, we support their right to do so. We must find a solution. The lists, as far as we are concerned, are final now. There are disputes about whether community meetings were called properly, whether they are still outstanding disputes. The firm and red and hard and uncompromising deadline is Saturday morning at 11 a.m. All disputes, all final disagreements, all any body has to say has to be finalized. Unfortunately, the ANC is not in control of that particular process. It is controlled by the Electoral Committee led by Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe. We're meeting them at 3 p.m. today, and we are advising them of that deadline. After that, we will not accept any further disputes. Some of the disputes that we've analyzed are not real disputes. They are complaints about the fact that as an individual, I'm more popular in that community and I know it. And the community didn't accept me, and I know why, because somebody else said this about me and somebody else said. Those are not disputes we can deal with. That's an individual's relationship with the community that is difficult. The community participation is not negotiable for the ANC. It was a guideline that we put out. We hope that people will accept that guideline as everything must be done by Saturday, 11 a.m., no more. You know, people have to accept and understand that. So I hope that everything I have said doesn't go into the papers of the DA. Okay, let me take the next three hands. I'll start in the front and next to you and SABC Radio. Okay, please go ahead.
Don't think any of our reports were misleading. You said 2 weeks ago, remember, when you had indicated that you would be handing in your papers to the electoral court. At that time, you had said that the ANC was affected by, I think, 30 municipalities or so. When you submitted your affidavit, in the affidavit it said 93 municipalities. And that was what you were actually quoting. So perhaps there was some miscommunication, or I can even send you scripts of my scripts that I wrote. Everything was factually correct. I remember I even approached you afterwards, asking for a follow-up interview. I would call the national spokesperson, Mr. Madi, just to confirm the numbers. Legkotla as well. So I was very confident that none of our reports were misleading. Something along the way was probably wrong or whatnot. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. And then just secondly, I think my colleagues had covered me on the side in regards with the ANC's list. Are you confident that this time you will be submitting your candidate nominations on time? Furthermore, just an update with the former President, Jacob Zuma. There's a narrative that he's somewhat being done a favor in order to mitigate factions within this part, within the ANC. I mean, what are your sentiments around that? And also narrative that politicians in business allied to powerful politicians are always given medical parole. So it's just a reaction to this. Thank you.
Okay.
From News 24. My first question is, you have already indicated that the ANC is ready for the election. Is there any space for the launch of the party's manifesto? That's the first question. And you have also spoken about the ANC playing a certain role within society. We saw during the funeral service the past weekend of the late K.B. Mokgwatshe, where the ANC national chairperson was being heckled when he was talking. how does the ANC address such a scenario? There was also allegations that people were firing gunshots in the air, which is a repeat of a scenario that happened outside Uganda. How is the ANC addressing such as the leader of society? And also, you spoke about having discussions within the Legkotla over dealing with water issues, social security. The Department of Water and Sanitation has no DG. The Department of Social Services also has no DG. Could you speak about capacitating those areas as well?
Okay. Yusuf?
Okay, with the SABC. Some of my questions have been covered and I'm now going to just two. One, GSG, you were talking about some members who were not registered in the area that they were to contest elections. Are you worried about the quality of this candidate? I mean, the ANC has been contesting local elections since 2006. But even today, the people who would be your councillors don't know whether they have to register in the place where they have to contest elections. Are you worried about that? And secondly, the quota, I mean, in fact, you captured what the president said last night. But the NEC Legkotla was preceded by the NEC, and I would assume that in that NEC meeting there was a discussion about how the ANC, as you've just admitted that the ANC doesn't have money, how the ANC is going to overcome some of the challenges, especially the financial challenges. There were a couple of suggestions that were made by the President General, I would assume, that NEC meeting in terms of raising money. Have those suggestions been adopted by the NEC in terms of raising a membership fees and crowdfunding?
Okay, let me start with Natasha first. I'm happy that you've clarified where your facts come from, and thank you for that. It was just a bit shocking each time we tried to correct, it wasn't corrected. That's my only point. Okay, then we are confident that we'll be submitting our lists. We are already we've started already with the provinces to get the gaps filled in and make sure that the names are correct and that people's IDs are correct and that what they call locus standing is correct and all of that. So we'll be done. Now, about former President Zuma, look, I think if you buy into that narrative, you're buying into a narrative that is exactly that. It's a narrative. It's not a fact. And in South Africa, the negative narrative on President Zuma will persist, no matter how positive or truthful the other narrative might be. It's the nature of the narrative around him. It doesn't change. It hasn't changed over 15 years, and it will not change now. However, as the ANC, we are saying that we're happy that he's out of a prison cell, that he will be getting the treatment that he needs to get, that he's with his family, and we wish him well. We're not going to buy into this other negative narrative. And I say again, as I've said before, this is an elder of our organization. And it's not about him being a prominent politician or not. If somebody's ill, somebody's ill. You know, I'll never forget, and I say this to you with a great deal of respect, when the late Manto Chabalala went to hospital to have a replacement of a liver, and the disgusting manner in which that was handled. It still lives with me as a South African, that we live in a country where without fact you can slay a person's health as you wish and make it into a political matter, and we shouldn't do that. If we can try not to do that, it would be quite useful. Nobody goes to a hospital and medical doctors say you're sick and you're not sick. Medical doctors take a Hippocratic oath, and that oath includes honesty about the patient's condition. So I would be a little bit skeptical about the kinds of narrative that is out there. We hope to finalize the manifesto this week. Our manifesto is not drafted by 2 or 3 individuals. It's very widely consulted. And we're short of a consultation, another one with our alliance partners. My understanding is that we're trying to do that this week. We will probably have the launch soon after that. I don't have a date yet. It is a bit of a, we're rushing things. Remember that if we had 6 months and everything was up in the air, we weren't sure when the election date was finally going to be. But we want a strong manifesto and a truthful one. We had to wait for the Legkotla first as well, and we move in tandem with that and move progressively forward. On the issue of people firing firearms into the air at funerals, that is a criminal offense. To fire a firearm in a built-up area anywhere is a criminal offense. And our understanding is that the authorities are taking action. And really, we hope that they do take firm and decisive action. It's wrong. It is not a mark of respect to shoot a gun into the air and you don't know where that bullet is going to land. And history is pockmarked with the deaths of people who have been killed because of a stray bullet. And whoever does that should be charged criminally. And we hope that that will happen. We also know that that happens regularly at funerals in the township areas in the main. It's still wrong. It will never be right. The behavior of people who are at odds with themselves at the moment is a problematic behavior. We're trying our best within the ANC, within Mkhonto Wesizwe, to unite MK, and we're moving quite well towards a unity conference sometime in December. It is unfortunate that Comrade Kebi passed away when he did, because he was really one of the leading figures in bringing about that unity. He was part of the PrepCom, did very well, brought people to the table, raised issues very honestly. He was castigated for doing that. Anybody who wants to make a change and drive towards unity, when there is a counter-revolution at play, will be given a negative name. And this we know. So no, we don't accept that behavior. And we are hoping that all those people who call themselves MK will adhere to the discipline of MK and the oath that they took, which actually does not permit behavior that might hurt any person, any civilian person. So hopefully. No, we did not discuss DGs and no, we did not discuss that. The issue about people who registered in areas where they didn't come from, I think that they may have, one of them is quite a high-level person in the community. For some odd reason, this seems to escape particular individuals. It's not a national registration, as we do when we go to a national general election. This is a very specific one. You are a candidate in a particular municipality, and you must be registered in the address where you live. So for instance, the fault line is the following. 2 people have their formal addresses in the Eastern Cape, but work in Gauteng. And that is a problem. I think people need to understand that if you're the candidate of Ward 56 in Ekurhuleni, you can't use your address at home, because on the form it says home address. Of the caliber of the people, this time around I want to assure you that it is quite different. The regional vetting procedure was very thorough, the interviewing of people, quite tough, very thorough, And yes, there will be a better quality of people. I hope you're not being meritocratous and telling us that our working class base must not be represented. Then we're going to have a fight. It doesn't mean that you're working class and you do not have 10 degrees, that you are not a qualified person to be a community councillor. A community councillor is somebody whose commitment is to serving that community in every way possible, and in taking that community's vision of the area to the council and making sure that they understand how the systems work. We also train all our councillors. We train them to understand how the system works. So we were looking for people who understood the raw element of service delivery. If they came with 10 degrees, that was a bonus. And many of them did come with 10 degrees up there, you know, your type of people. Our people have to be representative of the community. Who do we represent? Unemployed and working class people, in the main. They have to be able to speak the language of the people they represent, and the people have to be able to hear them and hear them well. In addition to that, they must be able to understand how a budget will work. They must be able to understand an integrated development program for the entire city. They must be able to work out what is important for their constituency where they live: roads, water, sewage collection, libraries, emergency services. There are some 27 local government things that local government people have to understand. We did discuss funding, and the crowdfunding was accepted, and it's already being practiced. It's out there. We are raising small. People are raising money already. They're sending money to the crowdfunding account. It's also quite heartening to know that a lady who earns 3,000 Rand a month sent like 100 Rand for the ANC. It was a bit painful when somebody gave us that statistic. You think, ouch, you know. It is in. On the increase of the membership fee, no, that we have to take to conference, because that's a conference decision. But it isn't right that we only pay 20 Rand a year. 1 Rand 26 a month or something like that. And we should be able to pay more. So that matter will go to conference or even the policy conference next year. So it will go. Last take, and then we're done.
Yeah.
Siri?
Thank you. Just a very quick one. You remember the Manto Simang era. We remember the Shabir Sheikh era.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our challenge is with the story. Where we are told somebody's terminally ill, they get medical parole, they're seen playing golf. A decade later, the person is still around and healthy. So we have that trust deficit with this governing party and what happens in the government. So you've got to almost hear where we're coming from when we ask about the ANC and these questions around that particular issue. Having said that, I also want to ask about the Arthur Fraser aspect of it, where questions are being asked about what the role of the National Commissioner was in this particular decision. His tenure is about to end. Is this a favor for a friend just before the end? Just want the ANC's take on that. And then you said local governments and elections are an exact science. The criticism surely that the ANC deserves is you've been at it for so long, you shouldn't have had some of these hiccups because you've been at it for so long and you understand how every part has to be done exactly as it should be. And then the last one is about the campaigns. You said you'll do door-to-doors. One has to think about the pandemic. How is the ANC going to adapt what it's traditionally done to win over voters with COVID-19 still a factor? That's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, can you just last 3 questions? Firstly, the matter in relation to some candidates who have been on the list, who have been accused of, criminal activities that they've been engaged with, or rather have criminal records. Is this something the party will also be looking at in terms of deregistering them off the list? Secondly, staff has given the party 7 days to revert back to them, saying that there should be action this time around if the party does not give them a way forward in terms of their salaries. In fact, they are asking for their bonuses by the end of this month. Is this something you'll also be looking into in terms of when you're having a meeting tonight? And then lastly, in the Northwest as well, with the appointment of Bushimabe, does the party welcome this? We've seen a reaction from some of these former colleagues, like the likes of Supra who have actually criticized him, calling him dangerous. I mean, that should mean something for a former colleague as well and a party member. Is this something the party will be welcoming as well? Thanks.
Okay, yes, ma'am. You okay? You. Yes, Natasha.
Just a follow-up on the list issue, especially pertaining to today's question and regarding what you said to us the last time. You made reference to the regional secretary in the Waterberg region that you had complaints of community members saying that the list that, or the people that they chose were not the ones that actually reflect on the list. Have you engaged him on this issue? How do you solve this issue?
Okay. Okay, let me start with Tidi first. I hear what you're saying, Tidi, but I also think that there are different circumstances to different situations. So if every situation is going to have a particular narrative, we're not going to allow ourselves to understand what the truth is and what isn't. No, I agree with you. It was wrong. The Shabir Sheikh behavior may have been wrong, but we cannot assume that Comrade Zuma is not ill and will behave like Shabir Sheikh. I think that's not quite right. And so let me leave it there, because if we're going to argue back and forth, you obviously have one perspective, and all I'm saying is that the world is much bigger than one perspective, even mine. If there is a mistake, then we will be wrong. If we see Comrade Zuma going to play golf, for instance, then of course you're right and I'm wrong. COVID is here. There's nothing we can do about COVID. The regulations are here. There's nothing we can do about those regulations. We must obey them. So we're hoping that whatever the IEC puts out in their management of the elections will take account of the fact that there is COVID. And that is entirely up to them. No one interferes with the election day rules that the IEC puts out. We would only hope that it does take care of the distances. Masks will be compulsory. No huggings, no handshakes, nothing, no contact. The question of our staff, again, I'm going to insist that is with great deal of respect. That must remain our business for now. Supra saying somebody else is dangerous, that's Supra's opinion. It is not a general national opinion that I need to make a comment about. It's him saying what he feels he needs to say. It's his opinion. Yes, on the issue of the pronouncement made by the Regional Secretary of Waterberg Region, the matter is being discussed by the Limpopo province, and the Secretary of the province has issued a statement saying that they're investigating. So we've left it. We've left it there. Have I left anything out? Sorry, just remind me.
Sorry, I was the welcoming of the Premier in the Northwest and the candidate list, councillors on the candidate list who have criminal charges. Are they deregistered? Because I remember KZN had a problem with that, especially when we spoke to the provincial secretary saying there was a lot of disputes, and I understand you said the BC will be looking into that, but what happens in terms of are they going to be deregistered, or what is the process that follows there?
Okay, let me start with the last first. No one who's got a criminal record older than 10 years old will be allowed to be on the list by the IEC. So immediately the IEC removes them as an exception. So if you have been criminally charged with and there was the option of a fine, then you can still stand. But if you have a criminal record that you did not have the option of a fine, you served a sentence, or you may even be on a suspended sentence that is younger than 10 years, then the IEC automatically, they have their own way of checking if it slips through our fingers. Up to now, we have removed all people with criminal charges from the ANC. Sometimes, you know, you don't know everybody's criminal charges, especially if it's an old one. But the IEC never ever allows. So there will be an exception, and that exception is drawn out immediately after they close the list on the 22nd of September. Tidi?
It's okay, I was going to go back to Arthur Fraser, but I'm
Oh, let me say, I don't know his role. I would not have known his role. And he would not have consulted his role with the ANC. I just want to make that point.
Of consulting the ANC.
Yeah.
The Correctional Services Department does say, as a National Commissioner, it's his discretion to
Yes.
run the role. So I'm saying to you, there are questions around this person who was once aligned to the former president,
Yes.
supposedly, this person who has allegations over him, this person whose contract is just about to end, and people say the timing on it all and his particular role in all of this is questionable. So can you comment on that, on those claims, those questions from the ANC?
I'm not going to comment. I think I would going to direct you to speak to Arthur Fraser and ask him that question. And I think that would be the fairest thing to do, because he has the discretion. He's exercised his discretion. What more can we say? You know, he's done it. We're happy that Comrade Zuma is not in a prison cell. I'm not walking away from that. And I think that, I know the expectation of the opposition is that we must say, you know, whatever, but we can't. This is an elder of the ANC. And even in our own organization, there are people who disagree with the fact that he's out of a prison cell. What we know is that he's ill. The president in his statement confirmed that and indicated that the ANC was happy that he's been put on medical parole. And that's, for the ANC, that's where we're going to end it for now. Okay, please have a reasonably good day. I qualified it. Okay.